All right, let's do this. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Trifecta. It's Braden. Sorry if I don't sound like my normal homosexual self, but I was just away at a work conference this past week, and I'm a little on the tired side. But we're here. We're going to do this, and we're going to have a good time. I'm here again with Brandi and Dez, and we're going to have a good episode today, I think. We'll see, kind of get into things. But you guys kind of heard about my week. I had a big work conference up in Whistler, which was super awesome. It's been a little while since we've talked, so let's catch up a little bit before we kind of dive into things, I say. One of you go.
I was politely wait because I don't want to like talk over everybody. I'm like, and it's my turn. Okay. Do you want me to start, Des, or do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know. It's been like what, a week and a half, almost 2 weeks.
I would say almost 2 weeks.
It's been a minute, girl. Nothing super crazy. Essentially, I just worked a lot the whole long weekend and lots of like closes and then on Monday I was at work and Shay sent me a picture of our kitchen floor and there was like a hole in it. So she was walking through the kitchen and her heel fell through the tile in our kitchen. And there was a big hole. It was like rotted wood. And then there was like a 4-foot drop because there's like nothing underneath. It's just like a subterranean, like basement type thing, I guess. So essentially, long story short, we have to rip up all of the tile in our kitchen and potentially our hallway and the living room as well, depending on how far the rot has gone. Yeah, so super adulting right now. So essentially, it's been like, he said it looks like about 20 years of just rotted wood build up. So there's just no air pockets down there for the air to escape. So it just kind of accumulates and it's been really humid lately. So essentially the wood is just like rotted through. And the only thing really saving the entire condo from falling through has been the fact that the owner has hardwood flooring in the living room and in the bedrooms. And it's like real hardwood. So it's like really sturdy. So yeah, that's been my week this week, just kind of dealing with that. They're going to be like drilling in like a 4x4 foot hole on Monday to like get into the basement or get into underneath, I guess, to see what the extent is. So luckily we have insurance and the owner has insurance and it's not going to cost us anything. It's just more inconvenient than anything. So, you know.
That's crazy. You'd think that like because it's like an apartment building or whatever, that like they would do like some type of like annual inspection or something.
That's what I was talking to because I don't physically own the condo. So the owner, she was just mentioning that like they're consistently doing stuff within this condo building, like underneath, but it's unfortunately not consistent enough and the board doesn't really address anything until something bad happens. So they're not doing yearly inspections and that's 100% on them. Yeah, no, it's essentially just like, oh, okay, I guess we'll inspect stuff when bad things happen. I don't know.
That's a little ridiculous. Like why wait till something bad happens?
Right? Like why
before doing something about that?
like a company and I don't know. So yeah, it's obviously more of a headache for the owner than us. We kind of just have to be here when stuff is happening. But
I like that it also kind of like that. Like it kind of also segues into like our topic this week. Like, why wait till something bad happens before you change something to make it right, or like to prevent it from happening a little bit. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so that's just what I've been dealing with this week, and yeah, that and working, all the good stuff.
All the good stuff, yeah.
And Des, how about you and your adorable kids? Let's be real.
Oh, yeah. They've been actually extra cute these past 2 weeks. These past 2 weeks, the newest thing was that we started doing this thing called, we named it Family Democracy Night. And so we did it with the idea of like, kind of, so basically what it is like every Friday night we get together and like me and Shimon and Xander and even Bash, even though Bash can't really participate right now, but we like just kind of bring to the table all of our family stuff and talk about what we need to, any planning, like if we want to plan like what we want to eat for next week. Like we'll ask Xander as well, like what kind of foods he'd like to eat next week, give him like a voice in those decisions. And then we also are bringing up like topics, the first one we brought up like some opportunities where he could really use some work. So like staying in his bed all night. He comes into our bed at 5 a.m. and sleeps from 5 to 8 in our bed. So that was like an opportunity. So if he does that, he gets like a sticker. Also, if he like does like some pages in his workbook, like working on writing his letters, he gets a sticker for that. And if he gets a whole card of stickers, then he gets like a reward, like he'll go to Build-A-Bear.
That's cool.
Yeah. And he has like the choice of like, if he only gets 5 stickers, he can go to like the dollar store and get a treat there, or he can save them. So it's also teaching him kind of like the saving kind of lessons. And then
I have stickers. Can I get a Build-A-Bear?
Yeah.
I really want one.
Do you have 5 though? Do you have more than 5 stickers?
You have to have 25. That's the whole card.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Does size matter?
So, never. It's how you use those stickers.
Yeah. God, we're too tired.
Oh my God. Says the virgin in the room. Right. Anyway.
But yeah, so we started that, and one of the biggest parts about it was that we got Xander to help design a new schedule because school will be starting next month. So he's still in just preschool, but we have like,
are we talking about kindergarten already? Like,
No, it's just preschool. Okay. It's 3 times a week, but it is a new start to the year, and we do go more by routine and schedule once the school year starts. So summer is like all about like just free for all, like giving him the freedom and whatever, but we're starting to buckle down and transition to the school year. So he helped design that, and he helped design the rules around the opportunities that he made commitments to. And I thought that it would help, but I was so surprised at how much this affected him. Like all I had to do, like literally from the first day, and I thought the first day was like a fluke, but like it's been 2 weeks now and he's doing amazing. We cut down on screen time, and the only thing I have to do if he's like, oh, but I want this, or I wanted to do that, all I have to do is be like, well, you remember you made that rule, like you only get an hour of screen time after you eat like your breakfast, and like that was your rule. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. And like he's only like fought us on it 1 time in this 2 weeks, and it's been so awesome. He's been eating better because of it. Like the screen time is way cut down. He gets some screen time in the morning, and if he eats his lunch, he gets some screen time then, and he gets 1 show before his bedtime if he eats his dinner. So like it all kind of ties in together, and it's working really well, and it's been giving us a lot of time to do like activities together, which is really fun. So I'm really stoked about that. That's been the biggest change in the last 2 weeks. And then this weekend, Shimon is away. So now I have both the boys. I'm on my own for the weekend with them, which is the first time I've been alone with both of them. So we'll see how this weekend goes.
She might need a 911 later.
Just call and FaceTime me when you're like crying in the closet. It's fine. I got you. No, like honestly though, like you're like super mom, and so I think you'll like kill it. You're gonna crush it regardless. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like little human development. I can't like. It's. Oh, are you okay there, Brandi? Did you turn into a dinosaur again? Not a dinosaur, robot. Des is an awesome mom, guys. Just like know that, okay? Sorry if that's really random, but not so random because it's true. But Brandi turned into a robot, so we had to stop and start recording again. So
technological issues.
But so I guess like let's get into this week's topic. We have been wanting to kind of talk about it for the past couple of weeks because the trailer just recently came out for the new 13 Reasons Why season, sorry. And I was like, I have opinions. We need to talk about this. So we're gonna get into that right now and kind of talk about the show. So for those who haven't seen the show 13 Reasons Why, it's a Netflix original that was produced with Selena Gomez. It's actually based off of a novel called 13 Reasons Why. The story behind it is that there is a girl who ends up committing suicide and taking her own life, and she leaves tapes behind for those people that impacted her like reason why she committed suicide, and it's the discussion to show at least the first season for sure was to show what really happens in high school. And then like me personally, I feel like it was like a very accurate portrayal of what like high school can be like as someone who was bullied in high school. And so I think it accurately portrayed that. And yeah, so it kind of goes through that process with her there. The second season is kind of going on about like what happens like after someone acts like that, in between like again the people that impacted her life, especially with her parents and like the court trials and stuff with the school, and then showing some potentials of like what could happen in the newer season. We were actually kind of just talking about this prior to recording, and I think my perspective on like the new season's trailer changed just like a little bit, because like in season 2 you start to see the character development for one of the characters. Can't remember what his name is. Tyler, yeah.
I was like, Blake? I know that one.
It's not Blake though.
It's Bryce. It's Bryce. Brandi.
I can't right now.
I promise.
But yeah, so there's some character development for Tyler, and where you see him start to like collect the guns and stuff, and you can see where they're planning to kind of like go with that character development within like schools and stuff like that. And I had totally forgot that was a thing when I saw the trailer, and I was like, ugh. But so the new trailer came out, and it shows that someone gets killed and whatnot. And I don't know, just watching the trailer, it just reminded me of like just a regular teen TV show kind of a thing right now. Like it just reminded me of like Riverdale, which don't get me wrong, love me some Riverdale and some Archie Andrews. Brandi shaking her head that she doesn't, but it's a good show. Whatever she says, don't
I'm
listen
trying
to her.
to be polite and respectful.
But no, I just like, I don't know, I feel like they've really lost, within the trailer at least, lost touch of like why the show was actually made in the first place.
Agreed.
I have. I'll let you finish, but I have some conflicting. I think they're doing again. I think they have a little theme going. But I'll talk about that after you continue.
See? But again, like I said, my perspective of like the trailer changed after like we had talked, and like I forgot about that character development for Tyler. So I kind of, yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of like where I'm at right now. It just really kind of bothered me that like, again, I feel that they've kind of lost that reasoning as to why they made this a series for people to watch. I know it was super controversial when it first came out because people thought that it was glamorizing suicide, and that it was going to make people want to commit suicide more. I personally don't think that. I thought it was really smart of them to come out with the original series, because it's a topic people don't talk about. And when you do talk about it, it's something always negative. I've always struggled when people say that, like, they think it's a coward's way out. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, they literally are doing that to themselves. Like I can't even poke my arm like without like, I don't know. I just, like, it bothers me when people say that. So I think it's a really good, like, I thought it was a really good series to start off with, and I'm not 100% sure like where they're going with it anymore, because it just kind of seems like a normal teen
sitcom kind of thing.
Yeah. So
for me, I like when it first came out, like the controversy with it, people saying like glamorizing suicide and things like that. I can completely see it. But I have a very similar kind of stance on it as to what I said when we were talking about The Little Mermaid, is that as a creator, I believe that they have every right to use the freedoms that they have to create the piece of work that they want to do. And that nobody has a right to, because a lot of people were like, oh, pull this scene, and, you know, they shouldn't be showing this on TV and stuff. And I just don't agree. Like, I think that people like don't have the right to tell creators how and what they should create. You have every right to critique that. If you think it's problematic in our society today, you have every right to do that, but you don't have the right to say you don't have the right to do it, to make this, right? Right. It's up to the viewer's discretion, and it's up to the parents. If youth are going to be consuming this, then it's up to the parents to be able to have those conversations. Brian Yorkie, I think, is one of the creators of this, and he often has said, like, we're making it to open up the dialogue. This is to make sure, like, he said something about he wanted like youth to feel like they are seen, that they're heard, and that he wanted to strike for the viewers to empathize with the characters and open up a dialogue, which I think is great. But I also have a lot of serious issues with some of the things that they do. Like I said, people don't have to watch this. So it's not, 100%. When I'm disagreeing, it's just my critique on it. It's not that I think that they should change it, because it's their piece of work. But I do definitely, if they're saying that they have all this intent to like help with this prevention and open up these things, I have issues with how they have gone about it in the past 2 seasons, and how I think that they're going forward. Like with Hannah in the first one, I definitely think that they showed a lot of glamorizing, like even just the whole concept of her to be able to make these tapes calmly and even witty, like she has like wit in them, right? She's making kind of like wittiness like within those cassette tapes. And it is a very big kind of like idea to a young viewer, especially if first of all, teens, you know, their brains aren't fully developed to know the consequences of long-term decisions that they might be making right now. So when they're watching this, that's the brain that is watching it. And then Hannah is like pretty much conveying like, this is the ultimate fuck you, is sending these tapes to these people and I'm getting revenge. And then through hearing her voice on those tapes throughout the series, the viewer kind of can get a sense that she's there watching and getting validation, and she's not. She's dead. She's gone. Right. Like, so for a teen to watch that, sometimes that connection in their brain isn't going to form there where they can like distinguish that. So I do think that they did some things that were very problematic. They continued that when now the tapes are over, but now she's showing up in Clay's imagination, whether she's a ghost or a conscious type thing. Now she's showing up in that way. So again, there's that whole sense of she's getting like her vengeance. She's watching it, and it's not, she's not getting vengeance. She's gone. She's dead. And even though these tapes are showing how people can affect other people, which is, a valid point that this, that they should be able to portray. But since they're doing that, it's making it seem like she's shifting the blame on everybody else when really nobody but Hannah made that choice. She chose to kill herself. So I have some issues with that. And then the second season, I felt like, okay, so they showed Tyler, he's getting bullied. He's starting to get isolated. He's starting habits like shooting guns in the forest with his new friends who are now like these punk emo kids. He gets a girlfriend. That doesn't work out. All of these things for a kid in America aren't super off either. Like even the guns, that's not super off for like teens to do, and for these things to happen, like to be bullied and like lose a girlfriend and be depressed and all these things. Then at the end, a very gruesome sexual assault happens, and that leads him to head to the school with a gun. So this whole season, that's what they're pretty much like foreshadowing in a very obvious way that this is what they're going to do. But I had an issue with that because it's not always so cut and dry. Like they very made it like cookie cutter. This is how you make a school shooter.
Right.
When it went to like, okay, these things are not that abnormal for a teen. Then this very abnormal thing happens to him, and that just like, boom, he's a school shooter. It just was another thing where I felt like it was, not minimizing, but like, I don't know. I felt like there's a whole other spectrum of all of these things, and they're kind of lumping it all together and making it seem like it's like the only way. It's like, of course, this would be the rational way that this child is going to think, is to become a shooter, like go to the school and get his vengeance in this way and say F you to everybody because he's going to kill them. Of course, Hannah would kill herself and like send these tapes because that's her way of saying F you. Like, and now like the season ended and Bryce didn't have to have any consequences for what he did to Hannah, which he raped her. Spoilers. If anybody's watching this,
I feel like if you've already clicked, like, sorry.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so like he raped Hannah, and he doesn't have to serve any consequences at the end of the season with the court case. And now we're opening up this season where he's dead, and they're saying like any of us could have killed him. And it's like the mystery of who. I think that's the best thing that they could have done for this season, because they left the second season, in my opinion, again, like you feel like you've gotten no resolution. Like there was no hope at the end. Like this show is having like a habit of like, they have the opportunity to show an example of how things could be, how an intervention could happen, how somebody could reach out. And it's like, they are like absolutely against it. They're like, no, we only want to show the worst case scenario in like the most likely of situations, what they think is like a school shooter or a suicide victim or all these things. And now they're like, okay, Bryce didn't get any consequences out of the court system. So now somebody's going to kill him to get justice, because what better FU to him is there than to kill him now? Like, and again, I feel like that's a theme, is like, they're saying like, oh, like this would be, we should empathize with these characters. And like, don't get me wrong, I do think that everybody should empathize. Like, people who kill themselves are not just like, they're not just somebody that's saying that I'm trying to say F you to everybody. That is not the situation. No. But I feel like it almost trivializes that. It's not showing that, because it is very obviously saying like, why would she give those tapes? It is for a fuck you. It's for, this is vengeance against what you did to me. is that she's killing herself, which is an absurd way of thinking. And then my vengeance over the people who sexually assaulted me, I'm going to go to the school and kill a bunch of innocent people, because why am I the only one who has to feel pain? And now it's like, okay, well, somebody killed Bryce probably because of what he did, like, in the previous seasons. So, like, okay, you're not going to get any consequences out of this. Well, I'm going to give you a consequence. And, like, that's my FU to you and the court system and justice and whatever. And it's like, no, somebody needs to show a good example. Like, this has so much opportunity to show that. And yes, it is opening up a dialogue, but the dialogue to a child who might not get that conversation from somebody is not great. Like,
totally.
it is a dangerous thing. But I do also very much believe that as parents, you should talk to your kids. Like, even if I didn't, like, choose to watch this as, like, an entertainment thing for myself, if I had a kid in high school, I probably would watch this series because it's trending so much, and it has been in the previous seasons. I would watch it because of the content and because it's trending so much, so that if my child were to come across a conversation that students might be having, or their friends or whatever, or they wanted to watch it for themselves and whatever, then I would at least be able to have those talking points with them, and that we could have some discussions about these things, so that they're not watching it and just getting those ideas out of it. But yeah,
I actually was just talking to somebody recently who mentioned that their kid that was in high school was actually bullying others. Like, he wasn't being bullied, but he was actually being the bully. And it was when the first season came out, and they had them watch the series with them together, so that they could at least get some type of, like, retrospective that this is what you could potentially do to somebody, like your thoughts that some people do have, and that there is the potential for this, and it really, apparently, like, it stopped the bullying almost immediately, which is good in that particular scenario, for sure. I don't think it's the answer for, like, all bullying, obviously. Like, bullying is an entirely different topic altogether, I guess. But it's nice. I don't know. I think it's good that, like, this series has sparked conversation in general.
That is I feel like the one good thing that has come out of this is the conversation and being open for people to talk about, even if it is just teens with teens talking about it. But especially when it's like an adult figure in a youth life that can kind of give a bit of perspective on those topics as well.
100%. It's I actually really like hearing your perspective of it, because I think, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's just me and being, like, naive, but, like, I definitely, like, didn't see, like, your particular, like, points behind it watching it myself, but, like, listening to, like, how you talk about it and, like, your view on it, I 100% can see, like, your, like, side of it, and I 100% respect it, and I definitely think it's changed kind of like my feelings behind it now as well, because I before I didn't really notice the, like I guess, like, the glamorization behind it, and when you, like, really explain it as, like, this big, like, fuck you kind of scenario.
And it's like a theme every season, I feel like, because when I saw that trailer, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, again, they're doing fuck you, Bryce. And
fuck you, season 3.
It was just like, oh my God, like, because that was, like, the first thing that made it controversial was the glamorization, but the glamorization was essentially that fuck you idea. Sorry for listeners, I'm saying, like, the F word a lot, but, like, that, that continued, and then Tyler had the FU world because he felt so isolated and bullied and all these things, and then now it's FU Bryce, because it's always these things where the makers are constantly tooting their horns about being this eye-opening thing that's going to like help prevent situations like this. And we want you to empathize with the characters. Well, if you're empathizing with them, it's also confusing for a kid if they don't have an outside perspective talking to them to understand that like, you don't empathize with them on the choices that they made because those choices were horrible. And like they probably know common sense, like to know that was wrong, but it also sends that subliminal kind of message that like, of course that would be the first thing in his head. And that's not true. That is not the first thing in every kid's head, is to go shoot a school or kill themselves or kill the kid that like hurt your friend. Like that is not the first thing your head would go to or should go to. And if it 100%. Is, then you should have a way to get some kind of intervention, be able to reach out or have somebody who is, you know, openly talking and having conversations with you, but they're not showing that. They're not giving a model for what that could look like or for those pathways to be taken for them, which these kids who are watching this would benefit immensely from that.
100%. All they do is just put that disclaimer on the front that if you're subject to bullying or have all these thoughts, just call this number. Well, no, actually showcase it within this show and show how people can actually use that.
Like I said, like they don't have that responsibility. Like I might disagree with some of the things and think that they're very dangerous and problematic if a child is watching it that doesn't have somebody talking to them. But that doesn't mean that I think that they shouldn't be doing it the way they want to. They can. And I do believe in proper ratings, which I'm pretty sure that they do have like an age rating on here. They do have a disclaimer at the beginning of the episodes saying like there may be triggers and viewer discretion advised. And at the end, they do have some resources. So they're doing all that they can, and it's not really their responsibility because like, do we tell people like, oh, don't make a horror movie because somebody could be a sicko watching and want to emulate this serial killer? Like, no, we don't do that to them. So I'm not going to do that to the makers of this show, but because they are specifically targeting like youth, I do think that some of these themes and some of the ways that they're going about the series are problematic when they are pushing it to the youth.
Fair. Brandi, thoughts?
I'm trying to just like listen and like take everything in, I guess. I watched the first season when it first came out. I just happened to be in Toronto for that period of time. And I just ended up watching it. And I didn't really have a lot of conversation about it because I was like in Toronto by myself. So I didn't like have the opportunity to really kind of discuss my feelings about it or really think about my feelings about the show. And then I did not watch the second season because I didn't really enjoy the first season. I don't know. It wasn't something that like, and again, it boils down to like taste and what people find entertainment and what people want to watch for thought provocation and that kind of thing. This is one of the very few times where I actually am on the fence, which is very rare because I always have like a very black and white kind of view on things. So I'm either like absolutely or like not at all. I'm kind of fighting with myself in my head as you guys are talking about like how I actually really do feel about it. I do, to an extent, I do agree that the creator has the freedom to make what they would like to make and to portray it the way they would like to portray it, because I'm one of those creative people. I wouldn't want anyone to stifle my creativity in portraying something I feel like is my story. But at the same time, I do feel like if you're going to be using this kind of content, you should have some form of responsibility to make it safe for the viewing audience, especially like Des was saying with teens who are so easily manipulated and easily kind of persuaded. I remember reading an article a short while after it came out, and it did mention that like I believe it was 13% of suicides had it had risen 13% since that television show came out and had aired for a month.
Oh, I didn't even hear about that.
Yes. So that kind of also swayed me a little bit in regards to the fact that we do have a responsibility as people to have conversation about it. But also the creators have a responsibility to treat this content with respect and with dignity. And I feel like because this show is kind of directed towards the Riverdale, like CW kind of demographic, it's really kind of muddying and mucking over the responsibility issues. And it really boils down to like intent versus like ratings. So if the intent is there to have a good conversation and to make this type of conversation normal and to talk about suicide, to talk about bullying.
Which
and
that's what they marketed it for. Like
exactly. I think it was kind of shady, to be honest. I think it's kind of bullshit because they got away with it by masking it as one thing and then portraying it as another. Yeah. And I feel like people should be more angry about it because these are your children. These are your kids. These are your teens. These are your friends. These are your nieces. These are your nephews. And if somebody is even remotely thinking about taking their life or has already taken their life because of being impacted, even to whatever minute detail from a show like this, that's danger. That's dangerous. And it's so I'm consistently kind of flip-flopping and going back and forth in my head because I am like, who's holding these people accountable? Because like, I'm not going to go ahead and be like, oh my God, it's like murder. Like they're murdering our children. It's not, because again, the responsibility at the end of the day relies on that person. And we could talk about suicide in depth later. Cause I know in the beginning, Braden mentioned that like, he feels very strongly that like suicide is not a cowardice way out and that kind of thing. And I actually tend to lean to the very, very opposite end of that. So I feel like we could debate suicide back and forth a little bit as well, because I'm somebody who's in that regard very black and very white. So I think, I'm flip-flopping a lot and I don't like it. I don't like not having a very specific point of view.
Well, and that's why it's controversial, right? Because like I said, like I do think that the creators have right to create. I thought some things were problematic, but I do agree, like, because they marketed it specifically to youth, that they do have more of a responsibility. But I don't know. I think it's because I so highly believe in talking to your kids and keeping an open dialogue. Like for me specifically,
you're like the 1%. You're the 1% that like is actually going to do it. You know what I mean?
I would hope that there's more than that a percent of people who would be talking to their kids, but I'm very aware that a lot of kids won't get those conversations from somebody who has like a perspective that can even things out or explain things and help them navigate their feelings. That's so like you were saying, like people should get more mad. When I did watch it, like I was upset for those kids. Like I did have that in mind. I was upset for those kids, but at the same time, there is plenty of other media that is just as harmful. So I can't hold these people like specifically like they're doing worse than somebody who's making a horror film that a teen can get their hands on, or
but I feel like a horror film isn't.
Teens, but
I was gonna say a horror film isn't pretending to be like isn't like, you know what I mean?
They're not.
Yeah, it's like apples and oranges, right? Yeah. I don't know.
I totally do understand what you.
Yeah.
But
and I don't think
I guess I just like I want parents to like
do their
help their kids like to stay in tune with them. I think that's a huge thing that parents need to do, especially in this day and age where there's so much technology, so much media, that like they need to really make sure that they know what's going on in their kids' lives too, and like and the kids to be able to be in touch with their parents and like not continue the cycles of the past where like you couldn't talk to your parents about certain things, and like because that's a huge issue of why the things in the show are happening. None of them are reaching out to their parents. None of them have parents that have been coming up to them and asking them how they feel. I think Clay's mom asks him like once or twice, or maybe even a few times after Hannah dies, how he's feeling, but there's no in-depth conversation. There's no sitting down and like,
it's not proactive.
Yeah, there's not. And so like, I feel like if anything, like I said, when Braden was saying that's one good thing about this show is opening up the conversation, but also individually, all the little stuff, not just the big suicide issue, but like all the little things, the details that you can see. And maybe it's just because I'm a parent watching it, but like, I will make note of those things and be like, that's something I would talk to my kid about. That's something I wouldn't like, I would make sure that I'm not in a house where I'm like, we have no conversations or anything like that. But at the same time too, I'm not putting blame on those parents because life is hard. Like you have to work like full-time jobs to support, to get a house. Like things are crazy, like in the real world. Right.
Yes,
so like, it is not, it's also like, I'm not trying to say either like the parents who might not have known something was going on or that their kid was watching this or struggling with these issues as well. But just if there are adults who are watching this and they know about it, to make those conversations known, whether it's a teacher, a caregiver, an aunt, an uncle, a mom, a dad. I think it's just on everybody. But it is like what you were saying, like they are specifically marketing to kids, like to teens, to youth.
I think that's kind of where the main issue comes from.
And I think it's very obvious. Like they are very obvious just about ratings because
it's all about that drama. Right? Like, I feel like if let's say it was not on the CW, let's say it was on HBO and it was marketed as more of like a stark, less like flashy, teenage popularity kind of, you know what I mean? I feel like if it was in that kind of area, it may have been received differently. And I feel like if they had treated it a little bit more like not like a documentary, but maybe had treated it a little bit more real, and then maybe portrayed different layers of this could happen, but also this could happen. It doesn't always have to be 100% like I get bullied, I'm shooting up a school. It could be I get bullied, I struggle through it, and sometimes there's redemption and you work through it and you are better as an adult for it and those kinds of things. And I think that's kind of what we're missing. It's very much a society of victimization right now. And I feel like there needs to be more stories
like shifting blame and getting
it's not
back
about accountability and like self-actualization and self-realization and progression. It's really all about blaming other people. And I feel like if we had more stories and more media, especially now for the teenage kind of demographic of things are hard and sometimes it isn't always easy and it doesn't always work out. But at the end of the day, you're a better person for it if you can work through it. I feel like we need more of that because we just don't have it. It's like, I didn't get what I want. So woe was me. I don't want to live anymore. And I think that's, nonsense. So, and too easily people are just like using that as a crutch. You know what I mean? It's so common now to have mental illness be almost kind of a scapegoat sometimes for just like lack of like progress and work ethic. It's like, oh, like life is really hard. So, and I'm kind of sad. So I'm depressed. And it's like, okay, no, but like, are you actually depressed or are you just like sad that you're not doing anything? You know what I mean? We're getting into different territory, but yeah, I think I just think it's really important, like you said, to have that dialogue open for whoever's around you, who's in that age group. And maybe even not in the age group. We could be 29 and having the same kinds of thoughts as well, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like there are adults, like there are people our age that still go through this and still have a hard time to reach out and stuff. I just think that if they showed what those pathways could look like or what those resources could look like, it would just be very helpful to those people who they say that they're trying to help. Really, like that's like when it comes down to it, no matter their wording about it, their wording is basically what it shaves down to is that they're saying this series, they want it to help. And I don't see where it helps besides starting the conversation. And they did change, like they started out saying like about empathizing and that like hopefully like the empathy would like help prevent certain things and people to think in the different perspectives and all these things. But then they slowly started going towards like, oh, it's to open up the dialogue. And then they stuck there because they know that they can't say that it's actually to help, because otherwise they would show actual good models of what could happen, and they're choosing the things that are getting them ratings, including like narrating or narrative gimmicks, like the cliffhangers and stuff like that, like yes, like the first season I binged because of course you want to see what's on those tapes, and like every episode is a cliffhanger and you're like, oh, and then what did this person do? Oh man, what did that person do? But like by the second season, like even the first season, it's not like you feel good when you watch it. But then the second season, I really felt like, I was like, oh man, the despair at the end. And like, yeah, it does happen. And sometimes when you watch films, like you do need, or like series and stuff like that, you do need to like know that that's a reality. And like, that's the way that they are teaching you their lesson. But the thing is, they're not showing the lesson part. They're not showing the part where it's resolved and where it's everything feels like they just are like, no resolution. Nobody gets resolution. Nobody gets like to see a pathway out of this. And if they're targeting youth, I think that that's dangerous, and that there is more responsibility that they have than that. It's
but
not
also
like,
ratings are really great. So, you know.
That's what I mean, is like, it's definitely about ratings. That trailer is great for ratings. That is great because you ended that second season. Everybody feels that despair. They feel hopeless. They feel like they didn't get what they wanted out of that season. And so people are essentially like rooting for the person who killed Bryce. And they are saying that they want you to empathize with the characters. Well, that's pretty dangerous territory. You're telling them to empathize with somebody who killed somebody. I know that Bryce is a horrible person, but like, you're telling teens to be on that side. And yes, okay, they didn't say that in words, but what are you insinuating? Because you know that people are like, good, Bryce is dead. I'm watching the third season. I didn't want to watch it because how it ended in the second season, but guess what? I'm going to fucking pick up my remote control. I'm going to watch because I want to find out who killed that bastard. And it's like, man, you're you're disconnecting these teens more and more from the humanity.
Didn't something similar happen in Riverdale? Like, was there not someone who died and they were trying to figure out who it was?
Literally every season of Riverdale.
Okay, I was like, turning this into. I was like, I haven't seen it, but like obviously it's like kind of everywhere. But like I just feel like they're literally turning this into like a Riverdale because of Riverdale's success. They just want to kind of match that, and I think they're trying to make it interesting by doing like a whodunit kind of thing, and it's so just far off from what they need to be doing, and it's frustrating. So clearly, I will not be watching the second or third season.
It is. I probably not like. I probably still will watch the third season, just because I do want to see
how it plays out.
Well, how it plays out, but like not from the standpoint that I had before. Like actually from having it from like this conversation to see maybe who knows, maybe they will actually talk about like ways around that.
Yeah,
you know.
And, like, I'm definitely gonna watch it. Like even if I didn't enjoy the second season that much. I watched it like entertainment wise, it was entertaining enough. I mean, it wasn't a good like I wouldn't be like, this is an awesome show, and it didn't make you feel good watching it either. But it wasn't like it kept my interest, and I followed along because I was already invested from the first season to the characters, and I wanted to find resolution. That's why it felt so shitty at the end when nobody got resolution. And then I'm going to watch this one regardless of whether I think it would be good or bad or whatever, just because it's trending. And I like to keep up to date with like these trending things so that if somebody did want to talk about it, I can be part of those conversations because the content is worthy of that. Also because I do have kids in my life. So I have my kids, I have a niece and nephew. Like if anybody needed to talk to me about those things, or they were talking about them in school and brought it up with me, I would want to be able to actually give them something that I can relate it, like be like, oh, well, like, the way that person was thinking in the series, that's not really how people think or how they should think. And if you are, that you could do this or this, because they're not showing that model. I would want to be able to give that to somebody if they were talking about it.
100%.
Well, now I'm thinking about my work kids too, and a lot of them are kind of in that demographic. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like I could have the mom conversation with them if anyone was to bring it up. Because sometimes I feel a little bit disconnected, even like I'm 29 and some of them are like 18 and 19 and 20. I'm like, okay, yeah, right. Like I need to still kind of maintain my current culture and social dialogue, because they do find work a safe place, and those conversations do happen. And I think it's really important for me to kind of stay on top of that. I don't think I have to watch the show to do that, but I like having this conversation because it reminds me again too that like I am surrounded by a lot of kids that are that age, and I need to kind of make sure that like they feel like they have a safe space to go and have those conversations. So I hope I'm that for them. Because, if you're spending, even 20 hours a week at some place, I want them to feel like if they don't have that space at home, they can have it at work. So,
yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's always safe to like have, I've always like throughout my entire working career, and even like in high school and stuff, I always wanted to be that person that people could go to talk to, regardless of the scenario, or whatever. Just have an open, non-biased, non-judgmental space for you to talk, which I also appreciate that we have this space here, right, for us to kind of talk about it. So yeah, I think it's cool. I'm really glad we got to talk about this today, because it definitely changed my perspective on the series for sure. So, I don't know.
I agree. Yeah.
I feel like we all had a little bit of different perspectives and got to see it from all different corners as well. And
yeah, I just hate not having a specific opinion. So I was wrestling in my head so much. I was like, what do I really think? It's really hard for me to decipher. And then you started talking, and then Braden said stuff, and I was like, yeah, no, okay, yeah, no, I do feel that way. So sometimes it's nice just to listen, and then you can really understand yourself in regards to those kinds of things. So
yeah.
And I'm also really grateful for this space too, because I didn't really grow up with, not that I couldn't talk to my parents about things, but I grew up with a really hands-off kind of childhood. So those conversations didn't happen. And luckily for me, I wasn't one of the children that struggled with those kinds of things. But if I had been, I don't know if I would have had the same support system, because I don't think they were as knowledgeable as maybe they should have been as parents. So,
well, even in the generations before us too, right? There's so much information. So the information I would have access to and be able to maybe have conversations about with my kids or my niece and nephew or anybody is so different than what our parents did, because they didn't know the same stuff. Different research showed different things. And the stigma was way stronger back then.
Yeah.
And you just didn't talk about stuff like that. I remember my mom saying at some point, if somebody said oh, you should go to a counselor, it's oh my God, a shrink, are you crazy? And that now it's a normal, we're oh, are you struggling with that? Maybe you should see a counselor. Maybe you should go to therapy. And it's a normal, it has gotten more normal. I shouldn't say it's very normal, but because there still is, some stigma there, but it's gotten so much better from when our parents were there. So if we had come to our parents, they would have had a lot less information to go on, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot less resources they would know of.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right.
All right. I think that's one of the first episodes where we actually just had a natural end. We're like, and I think we're good.
And we're good. Okay, cool. Well, I guess then we'll end that here for this week's episode. Stay tuned. Definitely, guys, make sure to if you are listening, make sure to leave comments and just leave your perspectives, because we'd love to hear them. This place isn't just for us to have a conversation; it's for everybody to have a conversation. So we'd love to get some feedback and hear from our listeners and see where we can maybe grow those conversations as well. So
yes. And if you are one of those people who do need a pathway out to figuring out where you're at in your head, if you're struggling with something, there's always somebody that will be able to help you with that. We are some of those people, but whether it's your parents, whether it's an aunt or an uncle or a friend, always reach out. Hopefully there are people who are also checking in with you, but I just want to stress that really strongly, is that just reach out. If you don't get the reaction that you wanted the first time, keep reaching out until you do, because you matter and your life can be something beautiful and you deserve that. And so just keep on reaching out until you get the help that you need.
Always 100%.
Perfect. Cool. Well, have a good week, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
All of a sudden,